Welcome back to Fire Princess Reviews. I'm Fire Princess Lily, here to talk to you about comics, cartoons, and other awesome nerd shit. So, today we're talking about something that I think is pretty special. You're probably thinking this is like a super old thing to talk about, and that's fine. I don't know how many people are going to click on the video because it is kind of an older thing to talk about, but even so, I still think that this is pretty cool to talk about because it's going to be the 20th anniversary for Cowboy Bebop, y'all. Like, I'm super jazzed about that, and they're coming out with like a special edition for the event. Like, they're coming out with actually 3 special editions. Depending on how much you pay, depends on how much you get, that sort of thing. Like, there's a $250 setting, a $350 setting, and a $550 setting. All out of my price range. Normally, I wouldn't even talk about something so expensive to y'all. I don't know how many of my viewers can afford it, but hey, you know, here we are. We're talking about it. I'm not being sponsored by Funimation, which is really too bad, because I could sure use the sponsorship to kind of get me going. But hey, it's okay. It's no big deal. We'll make the video regardless of sponsoring. So, that's right. We're talking about Cowboy Bebop. Boom, I brought my non-20th anniversary Blu-ray with me to give you some visual aid. Cowboy Bebop is the last fully hand-drawn anime ever created. Everything about it is hand-drawn to all the details. All the details! They're great. They're hand-drawn, and I love it, and it's great. Not that today's anime and the way that they actually use computers and such to get the desired effects that they want is bad by any means necessary. That's not what I'm saying. It's just really impressive the way that this show continues to hold up after 20 years later. It still looks amazing, and I love it. I love it so much. I actually watched a few episodes tonight just to like get myself totally in the mood to talk about it, and here we are. So here we are. We're talking about it. So, some of you aren't old enough or to remember Cowboy Bebop. You've never seen it. I mean, Adult Swim played it for like 5 years straight. 6 years. They played it a long time. Every night at midnight. And it was a great show. It's 26 episodes long. I would like to say that it has a perfect beginning and end. That's my opinion. Feel free to dissect that however you want. But what I won't... Well, I guess I'll let anybody disagree with me about this because I'm not so diehard. But what I will really fight about is the fact that this anime has the perfect dub. Now, there are totally tons of anime out there that are nostalgic to me that I'll still listen to in dub. And there are some dubs that just have not aged well at all from the time when I was a kid. But, yeah, this one, not one of them. This one's really good. God, I feel like I keep getting ahead of myself because I kind of want to talk a little bit more about it. So, for those of you who don't know what Cowboy Bebop is, it's a 26-episode anime centered in the far future where space travel is a thing. Humans have basically gone to other planets to colonize, etc. And our main characters are really Spike Spiegel and Jet Black. Now, they do get other characters who will also join the main cast. Faye Valentine, Edward, really long name, and Ein. Ein's the reason that I actually have a Corgi, and I've wanted a Corgi forever, and got a Corgi. So, you know, good for me. The dog's name was not Ein. It was a decision. Anyway, so it follows the story of the crew of the Bebop. And they're bounty hunters in space. Basically, you gotta make money, you know, space capitalism, or whatever, you know. We're just space capitalism. So, they are bounty hunters trying to make a living, and sometimes things are going good for them, but more often than not, things are definitely not going their way. It's bad luck all over the place. It's not good. There's even some really weird bad luck that they run into. Like a lobster mutating in a fridge and then biting the entire crew. Except Ed. Ed ate it. It's weird. So you'll know what episode I'm talking about when you watch it. You'll know. Most of you already know what I'm talking about. For those of you who don't, it's an episode. It's actually silly and good, and it's a total homage to Alien, the original movie. So definitely watch that one. Don't skip over it. Don't! Other people might tell you to do that, but don't do it. It's really great. What Shinichiro Watanabe wanted to do with the show is he wanted to tell an overarching story, a long story over 26 episodes, but each episode would contain its own individual movie-like feel. Each episode can stand alone. It doesn't have to be a part of the whole, but it is a piece of the whole, but not necessarily. You can pick Cowboy Bebop up from any episode just about, and you don't need really the rest of the story, because we start in the middle of the story, more or less. Spike used to be a part of a crime syndicate, basically space mafia, and Jet used to be a police officer in space, a space police person, because you gotta have law and order in space. So these two have come together despite, everything. It's obvious and apparent that Jet doesn't actually know everything about Spike's past, but he does know a little bit about it, and despite their differences, they still work together as bounty hunters. Spike, of course, is escaping the syndicate. He's left all that behind. Most of his old syndicate buddies think he's dead, and that's kind of the way he likes it, so it's good. Jet was betrayed by a dirty cop, and basically that's how his particular career in the police force ended. Faye has her own really weird story, and I really don't want to spoil that for you, because it is weird and it is interesting, and it takes a while to get into it in the anime. I want to say within like the 18th or 19th episode or so is when that comes about. And Ed's an abandoned child. Like, they have a father. Their father is totally worthless in every kind of way. Yeah. Ed's a kid, by the way. Didn't mention that. That's my bad. Ed's a kid. She's an amazing hacker. And Ein's a corgi. Ein's a dog. So those are your characters. And as mentioned, it's a big story. But each individual episode contains its own individual story that stands alone on its own. And that's what I think really helps to make it great, is that there is this continuity, but you don't necessarily need it. You can go through and watch your favorite episodes, and you don't need to, watch 3 episodes earlier to make sure you understand what's going on in the episode that you're watching. These are the characters, these are their stories, and done. Boom. I like it. Another great thing about Cowboy Bebop is its soundtrack. It has the most amazing anime soundtrack I've ever heard. And maybe that's nostalgia talking. I will say, if you're not a fan of jazz, this probably will not be the anime for you, because the soundtrack is so important to highlight the tones of the show and the tones of the episode and where things are going. That, the pacing, I really think that if you don't appreciate jazz, or if you don't like jazz, you're not really going to get as much out of it. I still think it's a good show, even without the soundtrack, but I really wouldn't want to watch the show without it. So that's me personally. I don't know about a lot of people. So, yeah. Now, this is one of the few animes where I will actually argue that the dub is better than the original Japanese audio. The American dub is better than the original Japanese audio. And the reason being for that is because a lot of the characters from the original Japanese audio came into the characters with a sort of idea in their head, more or less, about what they wanted the character to be like. The voice for Spike, for example, he wasn't necessarily, it was the same voice actor for Lupin the Third, another much older anime. And so he was a great choice, a really great choice, good voice actor. But he brought a lot of comedy to the role where not necessarily a lot of comedy needed to be. Yes, there are definitely funny moments in Cowboy Bebop, but the way that they're done in the English version is like they're more subdued and so they have a better impact. Whereas in the Japanese version, it's much more jarring because you'll be in a very, very serious moment, and that part where you're supposed to have kind of a small underlying comedy point, it's overdone and it kind of washes out more or less. And what makes the anime the dub better, other than just like that fact of they don't oversell the comedy, is that this should not be the amazing show that it is in America. The dub was put together on a shoestring budget. They hired voice actors that were not well known. And basically they each came into this role and gave it a sense of really, like, they personalized it. They really got into the characters. Especially Steve Bloom. You wouldn't imagine Steve Bloom not being the huge voice acting house name that he is. He voices everything. But back in the day, this was like his breakout role. And he just nailed it and out of the park. You really feel Spike's emotions even when he's kind of not being forthcoming in them. You can hear it in his voice and you can really sympathize with his character. The same with Jets and Faye, and they really just, like, Ed's Ed. Ed's great, Japanese, English, any language. Ed is great because Ed's the weird character. I mean, Ed does have a small, character-driven plot for their story, but it's not as big as the other three. Ein is Ein. Ein's a dog. Ein sounds like a dog in every dub. Ein never talks, so not really anything you have to dub over or worry about. But for the three adult main characters, the way that they came into their roles wanting to do something amazing and great with something that wasn't expected to do well, and they knocked it out of the park and they made it like this amazing thing. And it's part of the reasons, really, why we have as much anime today in America as we do. So blame Cowboy Bebop if you don't like anime. I blame several dubs, but Cowboy Bebop is surely one of them. And if it weren't for, I would say, Cowboy Bebop, Dragon Ball Z, even Sailor Moon, we probably would not have as much anime as we do now. We'd probably still be bootlegging fan subs on VHS tapes. Well, DVDs. But the point is, in the 90s, that's what you had to do to get your anime. Is if it wasn't showing on TV, if you wanted to see something, you had to get a shady VHS tape or wait weeks to download the file on your shitty dial-up internet and hope for the best that it wasn't porn or a virus. Sometimes it was, and that's just the way it was. So I am really appreciative of these animes that made incredible dubs, who really mainstreamed anime and got it into the hands of more people, and got them more interested into it, so that we could have even more series. And maybe not all the series are great, but they're there, and somebody likes them, and somebody's going to watch them. And I think that's great. So I really, really appreciate Cowboy Bebop. It's my favorite anime of all time, and if you haven't seen it, you should totally see it. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and buy the 20th anniversary set. If you can afford it, get it, because it's going to be super cool. There are 3 different versions. Like I said, the more money you put into it is basically the more you get out of it. But at the very base price of $250, it's hard to say that. But at the very base price of $250, you get not only the whole series on Blu-ray, you get the movie on Blu-ray, you get 5 lithographs, a 200-page art book, and the whole soundtrack on vinyl. Like, I know vinyl is like, how many are going to play it? Get a record player. Enjoy it. It's so crazy amazing. So, yeah. Yep, that's it. That's everything. That's everything about Cowboy Bebop. That's me basically gushing about it. Check out the 20th anniversary special. If you can't get that, get the regular Blu-ray. If you don't want to spend that much money on it, go to Hulu. They're showing it on Hulu. And if you really don't want to spend any money on it, and you really should, there is a few episodes in full, dubbed on YouTube that you can watch. I'm not linking them. Sorry. But you can certainly watch it that way if you want to. But definitely you can watch it on Hulu. They have the whole thing. And Hulu's free. So, well, free to a point. There are ads, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, not important. So, that's everything. What are we going to talk about next time? Jeez, I don't know. We've done 2 cartoon animated sort of videos. And we talked about Cobra Kai before that. Maybe it's time to talk about another comic title. We'll see what I'm talking about next time. Anyway, until then, I'm Fire Princess Lily. Love comics, love cartoons. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!